Okay, and the other thing I was to ask, I believe there is provision for people to launch public prosecution, but it's a very complicated and possibly expensive thing to do. Seeing as you are an integrity commission, would you facilitate people to launch the prosecution where the public prosecutor's office might not?
We simply do not have, we simply don't have the statutory licence to do it. We have the resources of it, but we don't have the statutory licence to do it. It's not within our power. I mean, that sort of example really is an example of, we can't cure everything. We've got a very limited area of jurisdiction. It's misconduct, code of conduct, dishonesty. It's that area. It's not inefficiency. It's not incompetence even.
If there's a case of serious misconduct and you have a feeling the public prosecutor might not prosecute the case, would you assist an individual?
No, I don't. It's not within our jurisdiction. It's not within our jurisdiction. Now, if there was evidence that the prosecutor had engaged in misconduct which was dishonest or fraudulent, well then it might be. But just in terms of reviewing a decision made by a prosecutor, whether the prosecutor or not, would not be generally without misconduct. Might be subject to some other review, but it's not within our statutory. Unless tied to dishonesty. Somebody took a bribe, not to prosecute, or to prosecute, that might be a different issue altogether.
But the term can of worms has been mentioned, and quite often it's really difficult for an individual to be able to navigate their way through to the appropriate source of information. So I would hope that part of your brief would be to steer a person in the right direction if you weren't able to do so. And if you are undertaking investigation and the process of time feels that you're barking up the wrong tree, you have to refer that on. Would you refer the individual and the case on with some recommendations?
Yes, and we can do that, and we have.
Not that that might necessarily be carried out, but nevertheless it might be important.
Perhaps not so much married to the recommendations in an early stage, but we have referred individuals on already who've come to us with a problem who have said, look, it's not really a misconduct problem, but there's something about this that doesn't look quite right, and we've sent them on. And I think we've got an obligation to do that. We don't have an obligation just to shut the book and say, sorry, that's all. I think if we can provide assistance, that's part of our obligation. And I might say, that's a fairly significant part of our education process. People don't like being scrutinised. People look over their shoulder at scrutiny. We want to be educated, the departments, the bodies, to say, this is in your interests. When a problem like this arises, it's in your interest to look at it properly, not to cover it up. So, I see us as having an obligation to assist people to go down the right track, but that doesn't mean we can go beyond our power. We can assist people as best we can. I think it is part of the educative process that we make sure that people we refer to the departments deal with it properly, and we can do what we can in that regard. I don't think we can require them to be accountable to us in terms of a result if they're not subject to our jurisdiction. Whereas, we can have a complaint, say, about the police, where we might say, look, we just can't investigate this. You investigate this, but because it's in our jurisdiction, we can say, please report back. We want to report back. We want to know what you've done.
Who can you do that to, Mark?
We can't do it if we haven't got jurisdiction. So in terms of this referral issue that you've raised, I think we've got an obligation to assist the public, and we'll be endeavouring to do that as best we can. But we don't have any plan. If we've got no jurisdiction, we've got no jurisdiction. Best we can do is say, look, why don't you go and see this person? We might write a letter saying, they've come to us, here's the issue, we can examine it. Whereas if it's in our jurisdiction, we've got some.
But you can't monitor the Integrity Commission because they're not going to do it.
Sorry.
If he's referring to the police, The Integrity Commission aren't going to investigate that. They're going to purport to. They're going to beat their chest, they're going to clench their fist, they're going to talk all loudly that they will, but they don't. So sort of like, you can't sort of like say this is not ours, we'll refer you on to the Integrity Commission.
You're very pessimistic.
I am totally sort of like, I totally without faith in any
One thing I'll say
just
is,
reliable.
well, I don't know about that, I'm not going to answer it because I don't know the history that you're talking about, but we've got a number of people in our staff who understand very well how the police department works. And in recent times, we've had people from interstate come and have a look at the issue. So, I mean, we don't have to rely upon in-house. We've got people in our organisation, starting with Barbara, who understand how our police service operates. From inside, not like me from outside.
But that's what they're not expecting from the Integrity Commission. You aren't playing fullback, Murray. You're under the high ball. You're sort of like got to sort of like catch it and run. You can't sort of like say, oh, I'm going to delegate this, I'm going to farm that. You know, like when they come to you, you're sort of like at the end of a blind alley.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, we simply do not have the capacity to do some things. We can monitor, we can supervise, we can audit, we can require responses. Now that's where we're going to be at the moment. We simply, with 3 investigators, we can't do it. Now, obviously, we might choose something and say this is not something that will be done by anyone else but us. We do have power to second assistance, and if we have to, we'll go to Victoria or somewhere else to get some assistance. So, I mean, it's not the end of it. It's not just saying, here's the ball, you run it, and please tell us when you drop it. We've got ways of dealing with it, but I mean, we all have to understand we are a limited organisation in terms of statutory power, for good reason, no doubt. We're not a crime commission. At the same time, we're also very limited in our resources. Like
we are skinny sort of with resources, and you're likely to be sort of like a little bit thinner sort of in the next few weeks. Do you feel pressure from government to sort of like toe the line on their sort of like BS? No.
I didn't take this job. I've spent my life standing up to evidence as a judge.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, Jeff Kennett, if he could have sacked me, he would have over a particular decision I made years ago. Releasing private prison contracts. Judges are used to standing up to evidence. I can tell you that while I'm here, I won't try to Now, we still have to work within our resources.
Of course,
we can't. And I mean, there are hospitals, there are schools, there's bridges, there's roads. I mean, we can't say to government, look, we could turn this box over, we're running a Rolls Royce.
Fearful, absolutely petrified to chase up and be leading for fear of what they'll find in the ramifications of those findings.
I would reject that from our point. The only issue I would say about that is we can't investigate whether the mine facility on a speculative basis. There's got to be a bit of evidence. There's got to be somewhere to start. And I mean, somebody might have a belief about something, and they want to speculate. We can't run that investigation on speculation. Now, if we had a Rolls Royce, well, perhaps we could. This is not a Rolls Royce. At the same time, I can't go to government and say, give us another 5 million so we can have another X number.
One or two in the future, let's know whether or not speculation or not.
Yeah, well, that might be so.
I'm conscious of the time and
sorry.
just sitting past the planned finishing time. Very much appreciate your attendance this evening. There's been some really valuable feedback and issues raised. We are really interested to hear about perceptions and issues, and more than willing to discuss them if you want to contact us or contact one of the officers. On the resourcing issue, I should point out it's not as dire perhaps as first contemplated. We do have a special provision in the Act, Section 86, where we have reserved funding. If the Board Chief Commissioner determines that an inquiry should be held, there is a major issue, the government has to supply us with the money to conduct that inquiry. So that's a very useful provision in the Act. There's some good news. So we're not, strangled by government resources when there's a very critical issue that we need to deal with. There is team coffee outside. Please feel free to stay on and network and to meet some of the staff. Great to meet you, and we look forward to returning quite frequently to Launceston and other areas in the north and the northwest. I think it's really important, and community engagement is one of our critical strategies. So thank you very much for your attendance, and thank you, Murray, for your presentation.
Thanks for that. I know, exactly. So I don't know whether getting to get the gear out, getting that ready. You're going to be saying the same things I've just said. Go on. Stop it up. Yeah. So I can leave this here, and Nicole will let me in. We might as well do that. There's no point just taking all that to